In this video, we're going to be vacuum sealing some non-perishable food items for long-term storage using some Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and we're going to seal them on up and then put them in 5-gallon buckets for long-term storage. Over the past year, you've seen a lot of videos here on my channel where I've been slowly stockpiling on various non-perishable food items. So going to places like Costco and at restaurant supply stores and also just regular grocery stores and trying to buy items that are shelf stable. Now all of these, if you leave them in the original packaging, will last a fair amount of time. But if you put them in these Mylar bags and remove the oxygen from them, they'll last anywhere from 20 to 30 years. And so that's what I wanted to do with all of the items that we've covered here on this channel for the past year now, and we're going to be storing them in 5-gallon buckets. I'm not going to be doing anything really game-changing in this strategy. All the tools and the supplies that you see here are very standard for preppers, but I've never really done a video on it here on my channel, so I figured why not do it now. So without further ado, let's get started with this video. Let's start off first by going through all the supplies that you're going to need. Now, the first supply that you're going to need is a lot of bulk food. So again, over the past year, you've seen a lot of videos where I've been getting sugar and getting rice and getting oats and getting beans and various things like that. Those items work perfect for this strategy. The first thing that you're going to need are some Mylar bags. I have a few different kinds. I have a 1-gallon Mylar bag and I have 5-gallon Mylar bags. I like using the 1-gallon for smaller items or things that you use a little bit more regularly, like popcorn, for example. And then with the 5-gallon ones, which will be going in the 5-gallon buckets, I like getting the ones that have the seal on there, kind of like a Ziploc seal. We're going to be sealing it from the top, but when you open it, then you could actually use that seal for sealing it back up again. Right now, Mylar bags are a little bit hard to find, so whenever you see them and if they happen to be on sale, make sure that you pick some up for your long-term food storage. They're never really going to go bad on you, so it's a pretty good investment. Next, you're going to need some oxygen absorbers. When you put these in the Mylar bags with the food in there, it's going to remove all the oxygen once it's sealed and soak them all up in these things. As you can see, they're sealed right now in a plastic bag. These are the 2000 cc and there's 20 of them here. So if I have any extras, I'm going to be putting them in one of these mason jars and sealing them up so I can use them possibly later. One of the more important items to get is a nice quality sealer like you see here. These are specifically designed for sealing the top of these Mylar bags, and it works really well. In the past, I've kind of done my own makeshift DIY sealer using an iron and a hot surface, for example. I didn't think that that created the best seal. This one does a really good job. Link in the description box. For some of the items that I'm going to be storing, I'm going to be using these Gamma Seal lids, which are really awesome. You basically just put these on the lip of the 5-gallon bucket, and then you put the top to it. It has an O-ring on it, and so it creates an airtight seal. I'm going to be doing that for things like the sugar and the salt, because you don't necessarily need to have those in Mylar bags. You just need to make sure that they're airtight. So we're going to use the Gamma Seal lids for some of those. Again, I got this one green for the color of prepping. Food, green is for food, and so that's what I'm going to be using for these Gamma Seal lids. I also brought my label maker, so we're going to be putting labels for all of these buckets just so I could keep track of them, and I don't want to write on them with permanent marker. I'd rather just have a label on there and then I can replace them if I ever need to reuse the buckets. So a label maker. We also want to pick up some 5-gallon buckets. Now you want to get the food grade buckets. You don't want to get something like paint buckets or anything like that. These ones are specifically designed for storing food. Sometimes you could find these at restaurants, like they store pickles and things like that, but keep in mind that anything that was previously stored in here is probably going to leach into the smell of it. So I wouldn't recommend using a used one for stuff like the sugar or for the salt, because those smells may leach into those items. If you're using the Mylar bags though, it's not going to leach through the Mylar bags, but I typically just get brand new buckets from now on and just get the food grade ones. I order them from Amazon. So again, I provided a link for the ones that I use for my projects. Let's start off first by sealing the sugar and the salt. So I'm not going to be using the sealer with the Mylar bags for this one. I'm just going to be using the Gamma Seal lids, and that'll do just fine for these particular items. So I have a few 50-pound bags of salt and of sugar and some 25-pound bags as well. These are items that I've picked up in bulk over the past few months at various grocery stores. So to start off first, we're just going to use one of these Gamma Seals and get the ring on the lip of the 5-gallon bucket. They're pretty easy to install. You just kind of go like this, use some pressure, and you could get it down in there. You're going to hear it snap, and then eventually you're not going to be able to hear any snaps anymore, and that means that it's properly installed on the 5-gallon bucket. Let's do a few more of them. All right, those look good. All right, these buckets are fairly clean, so I'm just going to open up the sugar and the salt and dump them in and then put the Gamma Seal lids on. So let's get going with that. All right, so I have around 100 pounds of sugar in these 3 5-gallon buckets with the Gamma Seal lids on there. I have a little bit left, so we're just going to add that to our regular pantry stock. So now these are going to be for long-term storage, and I'm going to store them in a cool, dark place, so most likely in the basement. So now what I'm going to do is just take the label maker and put some labels on all of these. All right, so I got the labels on all these ones. Now let's get going with the salt. So a 50-pound bag of salt fills up 1 bucket completely full, and then another bucket around a third full. So I'm actually going to pick up around 25 more pounds of salt. We already do have salt in our stash, but I want to make sure that this bucket's completely full. So later on, I'm just going to pick up an extra 25 pounds and I'll top this one off. Let's quickly put on the labels for the salt using the label maker. All right, so these 5 buckets are ready to go with the sugar and salt. We haven't even used the Mylar bags with the sealer. So let's get started with that project now. Now let's move on to the other non-perishable food items. So things like the rice and the rolled oats and beans. What I like doing is putting them in the 5-gallon buckets with the bag. I'll get them all ready to go. Then I'll put in the oxygen absorbers into all of them and then use the sealer all at once. So it's all really fast. So it's going to be more setup time to get the buckets all ready to go. But once they're ready, then we're just going to quickly put the oxygen absorbers in and then seal them up. So let's get everything set up and ready to go. All right, so these bags are just about ready to go. So I'm just going to start putting in all of the non-perishable food into the bags. We're going to go all the way up to the top of the bucket, and we're going to make sure that we're able to stuff it all in. And we're going to be putting in the oxygen absorbers in later and then doing the seal of it. So let's start moving all of the non-perishable food items into the bags. So a 25-pound bag of rice fits really nicely into one of these 5-gallon buckets with the 5-gallon Mylar bag in there. So again, 25 pounds for 5-gallon buckets. Before we seal these up, I want to make sure I keep track of everything. So I'm going to actually use the label maker and mark off which kind of rice that we have. So some of them are Calrose rice, other ones are basmati rice. So I'm going to just get my labels ready to go and put them on the lids. Just a really quick note for the rice, make sure that you go with white rice, like basmati rice, jasmine rice, Calrose rice, over something like brown rice. Brown rice doesn't last as long using this method. So save the brown rice for your pantry and use white rice for this long-term food storage, the ones that you want to last 20 to 30 years. Let's fill up the rest of the buckets now with our rolled oats and with our various beans. All right, so these buckets are done. We have rice, we have various legumes, we have pinto beans, black beans, lentils. I still have some rolled oats that I need to bag as well, although I don't have any more buckets, so I need to buy some more buckets. So that's for the next project. So what I'm gonna do now is use some of those 1-gallon Mylar bags for this popcorn. We already opened it up a little bit, but we're gonna store some of it in these 1-gallon Mylar bags and save those for later. All right, there we go. We have some popcorn over here. I'm going to use the label maker and just put the label on the Mylar bag itself. All right, we're ready to start sealing. So this has been preheating for a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to get all these bags ready to go before we open up the oxygen absorbers, because once you open them up, it's going to start soaking up oxygen. So again, make sure that your iron's preheated and nice and hot before you get going. And so what we're going to do, these ones have the little Ziploc seal on all of them. So we're going to get them kind of scrunched down like this with just a little space in there, and then we're going to throw in the oxygen absorbers. Now you could probably get away with putting a single 2000 cc oxygen absorber in each one of these. I like doubling it up, so I usually put a couple of in there. I have plenty of them. And so I'm going to just get them all ready to go with the Ziploc seal and get them nice and scrunched down. So then I just have to pop them in there, and then we'll do the formal seal using the professional sealer that we have over here. So let's just get them all ready to go for the oxygen absorbers and for the final seal. All right, so these are all ready to go. I have them mostly sealed with the Ziploc seal on them, and I just have a little opening in here to be able to put in the oxygen absorbers. Then we're going to finalize the seal with the Ziploc, and then at that point we'll use this hot sealer and seal them for good. So let's get going now. We're going to open up the oxygen absorbers, put them in the bags, finish the seal, and then we'll use the sealer to put the final seal on all of them. I'm going to put the remainder of the sealers inside of this mason jar and put the lid on it so to keep it airtight. Maybe we'll be able to use them later on. All right, so let's close up all of these now. We'll remove all the air out of it and then just kind of get the Ziploc seal going with all of them. Again, make sure that you push down and get all the air out of it before you do the final seal on it. All right, so these are all ready to go. Let's get the final seal going on them. This thing's really awesome. You should definitely pick one up. Before I was using an iron, or I even borrowed my wife's hair iron and used that as well. These things work really good and they have nice little lines in it and it really creates a nice seal. All right, so that about does it for this particular round of sealing up the non-perishable foods, storing them in Mylar bags, removing the oxygen, and then doing a final seal of them before putting them in those long-term storage in the 5-gallon buckets. These are all fairly sealed and just made sure that I could close the lids with all of them and just let the oxygen absorbers continue to work over time. Some of the ones that I did felt like they had a little bit too much air in it and I wanted to make sure I could still put the lids on the 5-gallon buckets. And so I just took my pocket knife and I made a little slice in it and I was able to push out all the air. And then while I'm pushing down with it, I used the sealer and did the final seal of it so it would fit inside of the 5-gallon buckets. So you may have to do that with some of the Mylar bags that you have in your 5-gallon buckets as well. That's going to do it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching it. Again, nothing real special on this one. I didn't do anything game-changing. I just showed you the supplies that I used, some of the food that we stored in these Mylar bags, and now a lot of this food is going to be good to go for multiple decades, so for 20 to 30 years, and I'm going to be storing them in a cool place. So in the basement, for example, where the temperature stays the same for the most part. So we did a few of them with the Mylar bags and the oxygen removed, and we did some with the Gamma Seal where it was just an airtight seal. And you could do some research online to figure out what non-perishables would be best for what application. So I do the oxygen absorbers with the Mylar bags for rice, for legumes, for rolled oats and things like that. And then for salt and sugar, I just store those in 5-gallon buckets, food grade ones with the Gamma Seal lids. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video. Leave your comments below in the comment section regarding this video. If you like these type of videos, consider subscribing to the channel. I also have a weekly and monthly newsletter that I send out to your email. And you could also follow me on my Discord server as well. So a lot of different options. Stay prepping, everyone, and see you guys next time. Take care.